Hello, and welcome to the mandatory orientation for external agency funding application process. Throughout this session, you will hear us saying EAF, which is the acronym for External Agency Funding. Here is the agenda. We will first have introductions of those of us that will be presenting. Then we will review the strategic goals for community services, followed by the strategic goals for arts and creative industries. Then we will have an overview of the fiscal year 18 EAF application process and general application instructions. At the end of this orientation, there will be some questions that you will need to respond to by sending an email to eaf@louisvilleky.gov. So let's get started. I am Connie Deering, the coordinator of the External Agency Funding for Community Services.
I'm Rebecca Jarnett. I'm the coordinator of the Office of Youth Development and the EAF Youth Grant Coordinator.
And I'm Audrey Cotton, the coordinator for the Arts and Creative Industries.
Please note that viewing this mandatory orientation and/or submitting an application does not guarantee that EAF funding will be available. Louisville Metro Community Services strategic goals are decreasing homelessness, increasing household financial stability, increasing youth, teen, and/or young adults engagement in quality programming, increasing access to services and resources for a targeted population.
The strategic goal for arts and creative industries is to build opportunities for the arts and creative industries through initiatives that expand economic development strategies through the arts and creative industries, to pursue creative placemaking and arts-based programs in neighborhoods that have experienced disinvestment, and to expand opportunities for citizens to access and engage with visual, performing, and other art experiences.
For fiscal year 18, the EAF application process is as follows. Louisville Metro Government will accept applications via an online survey until Friday, February 10, 2017 at 5 p.m. from qualified nonprofits that are committed to providing services that achieve meaningful outcomes for Metro citizens in the following service categories. For community services EAF applications, those categories are workforce development/job training, household stability/safety, services specific to identified target populations, and services specific to youth, teens, and/or young adults. These services must also fall within community services strategic goals, which were previously mentioned.
We will accept applications up until 5 p.m. on Friday, February 10, 2007. Qualified nonprofits should be committed to providing services that achieve meaningful outcomes for Metro citizens in the arts and creative industries, including economic development initiatives related to arts and creative industries, creative placemaking and arts-based programs in neighborhoods that have experienced disinvestment, opportunities for citizens to access and engage with arts experiences. These services must also fall within Louisville Metro's strategic plan, goal number 14, to build opportunities for the arts and creative industries.
Federal government external agency funding is not intended for health organizations, child care centers, support groups, or startup organizations. The following are requirements for all organizations. Must be registered and in good standing with the Kentucky Secretary of State. Must be registered and in good standing with Jefferson County Metro Revenue Commission. Must be an IRS 501c3 tax-exempt organization. Must be in good standing with all departments of Louisville Metro government, such as Safe and Healthy Neighborhoods, Neighborhood Development Funding, EAF Youth, and EAF Community Services, the Health Department, and Arts and Creative Industries. Services must be provided in Jefferson County.
All combined funding from Metro external agency funding cannot exceed 25% of the applicant/organization's total cash budget. This means that any organization that is requesting funding from any external agency fund, regardless of the department, the total that you are requesting from all departments cannot exceed 25% of your agency's total cash budget.
Listed are only a few examples of unallowable costs using Metro dollars. You cannot use Metro dollars fundraising expenses. Indirect costs are food, with the exception of youth programs who can use the funding for snacks. A complete list of unallowable expenses can be found in the guidelines booklet, which can be obtained on the EAF website at www.local.ky.gov/EAF.
So, what are we looking for in an EAF application? Here are some of the things that we're specifically looking for. Does the program that you're applying for further the strategic goals for community services or for arts and creative industries? Is the service or program that you're applying for working collaboratively with other nonprofits or with artists in our community? Does the program that you're applying for serve clients in Jefferson County? And does the program that you're applying for have measurable outcomes? It's very important that you have measurable outcomes. So how do you apply? Go to www.louisvilleky.gov/EAF to access the link for the applications and to download a copy of the guidelines and other important documents. When you go to louisvilleky.gov/EAF, you will find that there are two separate applications. There's one application for community services, which will be noted by a CF, and then there's a second application for arts and creative industries, which will be noted with the word art. You will also note that there are two separate guidelines, one for arts and creative industries and one for community services. Please download and print the guidelines for whichever type of application that you are applying for, because it's very important that you read those guidelines, because in the guidelines are step-by-step instructions for how to complete your application, and it will answer many of your questions. So there are two different types of applications, one for community services and one for arts. You will need to send an email to eaf@louisvilleky.gov to receive additional links to the online application if you want to submit more than one application. That means if you are wanting to submit an application to community services for a community services grant and one for a youth grant, you will need two separate links. So you will need to send an email to request a link number 2. The same thing goes for arts and creative industries. If you want to submit 2 or more applications, you will need to request the number of links that you will need to submit a separate application for each link. Please, when you send that email, you might note what type of application you are wanting to submit so that we will make sure to send you the correct link. And remember, follow all the instructions in the guidelines. Scoring. All applications will be reviewed by a panel of community members who will use a rubric to score key areas of the application. And those key areas are, first, there is a review threshold, which will be done by staff. Staff will check to make sure that you actually have a completed application. You must hit the submit button at the end of the application to make sure that your application is counted as complete. You must listen, view, and submit answers for this mandatory orientation to EAF@louisvilleky.gov in order to get credit for the mandatory orientation. You also need to have organizational compliance, which means that you need to be a 501c3 organization. You need to be in good standing with the Secretary of State as well as the Revenue Commission and all departments of Metro government. The scoring components that will be scored by the panel are your program description, your program goals, your program outcomes, which must be measurable, your budget information, whether or not you are collaborating with other agencies, and whether or not or how you plan to sustain the program that you are applying for.
Please remember, the deadline for filing applications is Friday, February the 10th, 2017, at 5 p.m. For questions or additional information, send all inquiries to the email address of eaf@louisvilleky.gov.
Now that you have completed viewing the mandatory orientation, you'll need to answer a few questions which are listed below and send your answers in an email to eaf@louisvilleky.gov. First, please type your name and the agency that you are representing so that you can get credit for viewing this mandatory orientation. Question: when is the deadline for all applications to be submitted? Question: how do you find the link for the online application? Question: what type of EAF application will you be submitting? Please submit your answers to eaf@louisvilleky.gov. Thank you for your interest in the EAF application process. If you have any questions, please send an email